Meshach Monty, thank you, James Karaoke. I can see you. Keep those reactions coming in. Karibuni sana. Gladys, thank you for the confirmation. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the webinar. Hi, Niels. Hi, Niels. Welcome. So we're just going to give a few minutes to the people who are still joining, then we shall begin. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon on a Friday. If you have just joined, just react to tell me that you can hear me. Thank you so sweet. I appreciate it. And when you're doing that, please tell us where you're joining us from. What do you do? Who are you? What's your name? We'd like to get to know you. Thanks, Cloudy, in Nairobi. Monaidi from Taita Taveta, karibu sana. Niels is joining us from the Netherlands. Epaphroditus says she or he can't hear my sound. Is anyone else experiencing this? Niels is joining us from Norway. Yes, tell me where you're from. Meshach Mwanthi is joining from Nairobi. He's an aspiring fish farmer. You are at the right place. Kay is joining from the Philippines. Welcome. Damirais Lira joining from JBL Consulting, Nairobi. Karibu sana. In a bit, we'll tell you who we are. I'll let you know who I am. But you go first. You're the guest. We'll be starting in a bit, in around 2 minutes. While we're doing that, please tell me who you are, where you're joining us from. James is joining from the Philippines. Joyce Liti is a senior technologist from JQuat in charge of fisheries and aquaculture. Thank you so much for joining us today. Karibu sana. So Peter Maganga is a fisheries and aquaculture. Is a student joining from JQuat. Karibu sana. We are happy to have you. Great. I think we have a good number, so I'm going to begin. I'll start by letting you know of who I am and where I come from. On your screen, you can see the Best Fish Farmer Competition Sustainable Aqua Health Management webinar. Welcome. It's courtesy of Lattice, Larive, the Aquaculture Academy, and the Dutch Embassy, who will be speaking about later. My name is Lydia Obuyo. I come from Lattice. Lattice Aquaculture is responsible for enhancing food security in Kenya, the blue economy and sustainable livelihoods for people through market access, capacity building, financing, and technical support. On your screen, you can see the agenda of the day, which will take around 1 hour, 45 minutes or so. We've already welcomed you, and we're going to have various speakers who will be speaking about sustainable feed management, about fish disease, about fish farming impact on community development. We have various speakers from different parts of the world. So you are not in the wrong place. I've seen someone who is an aspiring fish farmer. You are in the right place. And we are happy to work on this journey with you. As I mentioned, this webinar is courtesy of the Best Fish Farmer Competition, which we'll be talking about later. Yes, and yeah, this is me. This is Lydia Oguya. I'll be your moderator and your host. As I said, I come from Lattice. And when you're going to anybody's house, I know people here, some of you are from African homes. You know, there are some rules that you're supposed to follow. I mean, my mom would punish me if I go to someone's house without removing my shoes. I don't know about you. Tell me some of the cultural rules that you have. But in this case, in this situation, some few house rules for you to ask questions. You can use the Q&A function or the chat. Let us be respectful to each other so that we can accommodate everyone from around the world. I think respect is one thing that is standard, and that should be standard for everyone. Please give us your feedback. We are happy to answer any question that you may have. Of course, according to the time that is allocated, the questions that are allocated. Tell us what you're experiencing. Tell us about your experience as a fish farmer, as an aspiring fish farmer, as a student. We'd like to hear a lot from you. And please don't use offensive language and don't overuse the chat. Use it as per need. Thank you so much. So I'd welcome my colleague, Claudie, to give us a brief overview on the Best Fish Farmer Competition. Welcome, Claudie.
Thank you so much, Lydia. As she said, I'm Claudie Lift and I work for Larive International. And together with Lattice, we execute the Best Fish Farmer Competition this year. This is actually the third time that we are hosting it. And it's always focused on the Kenyan agriculture sector for fish farmers, but also for agriculture students. I saw some university students already popping up in the chat, so that's very, very welcome to all of you. So as Lydia already mentioned, this webinar is part of something bigger. It's part of the Best Fish Farmer Competition, which we are hosting at the moment since the early January, and everybody can still subscribe to it. So when you subscribe, you can win amazing prizes, that first of all, but there is also free training included, free farm trials, free feed. So look at the competition there. The link is already mentioned in the chat, I see. Thank you so much, Arthur. So please click on the link, subscribe today, and we'll announce who's going to be the top 5 in March. We'll come and do a farm visit, and we'll have an award ceremony at the beginning of April, the 12th of April, in Kisumu, where we actually celebrate the top 5 fish farmers and the top 5 agriculture students. And for the students, there are great internships included. Amongst one of the sponsors of this whole program is Tunga Nutrition, who has a really, really cool internship program drawn up. So definitely something to look forward to. So please, everyone, subscribe to the link, and let's see, who knows, we'll meet in March. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Claudie. Thank you so much for that discussion about the competition. On the chat, I can see our winner for the Best Fish Farmer Competition 2023. That's Sabrine Owino. Thank you so much for joining us. She's the winner, the best student category last year. She'll let us know of her experience later once we get into the program. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Niels. Niels is calling all the way from Norway. I told you we have people from all over the world in this call. And Niels Niels is an aqua medicine biologist from Norway. He's worked in the fish health service, working with practical fish health, including biosecurity, diagnostic, and treatment in salmon farming for 4 years. So he's 4 years working with vaccines and pharmaceuticals for fish. He joined Blue Planet in 2018, and he's been our partner in developing the e-learning with a focus of salmon in Norway and tilapia and African catfish in Kenya. So I think we will talk about the platform later, but Neil will take us through this very important topic, fish diseases prevention and treatment. Niels, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lydia, and thank you for allowing me to present a little bit of my favorite topics today. It's going to be quite short and condensed, so we'll show you a little bit later on where you can learn a little bit more than what I'm just telling you today. So first thing first, do fish get sick? Yes, unfortunately so. All fish species, all life stages can develop diseases. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will do it, but you should be prepared that it is a possibility, and you should plan for it to happen and hopefully avoid it. So why do disease occurs? We usually like to say that it's an interplay between the fish, the environment, and harmful organisms. So the fish is naturally made to be able to resist different kind of diseases or environmental changes. So the fish got an immune system, just like we do. It got scale, it got skin to avoid it from entering the fish. And it also got mucus that can actually kill a lot of different parasites and bacteria and viruses already there. So when we talk about the fish, it needs to be in the right condition. It needs to be healthy, it needs to be well fed. However, if you got stressed fish, fish with wounds, it's much easier for your harmful parasites or bacteria or viruses to enter the fish and cause damage. The second thing is the environment, and especially the water quality. It needs to be optimized for the fish species and the life stage of the fish to thrive. Like Lydia said, I work with a lot of salmon. The maximum temperature of a salmon is 19 degrees. So that would perform very, very, very poorly in Africa because the environment is too hot basically for it. So the immune system will collapse. As for the pathogens, well, if there's no harmful organism present, you won't have a disease. Unfortunately, that is usually not the case. There's always something going on over there, but there's different kinds of harmful organisms. Some is just opportunistic. They attack you if they got the chance, while others is a little bit more of a problem that needs to be addressed. The most important thing, however, when working with fish and diseases is that you need to know your fish and the environment the fish is living in. I can't stress this enough. If you just is a fish manager working only in your office, you definitely won't have any idea what the normal behavior of the fish is, and that won't do. Honestly, that won't do. So you need to know the normal behavior of your fish. Where in the pond or in the cage or in the tank do the fish usually stays? Weak, diseased fish is usually up in the surface of the fish, of the tank at some stages. It might be spinning. Would that be normal? Probably not, but you need to know these kind of different traits the fish have to be sure that you can, at an early stage, see that something is wrong. Normal mortality is important to know. Hopefully you don't have any, but especially in big tanks or big cages, could be a couple at least every day. So if it's increasing, that's a warning sign. Appetite, all fish are hungry. So if there's a change or if your fish doesn't really want to feed as it usually do, that's a warning sign. And also know the environment. Fish react to changes in the environment at a much more it can adapt to different environmental conditions, but especially changes in the environment can stress the fish and it will act abnormal. Also, like low oxygen levels and that kind of stuff can be seen by the behavior of the fish. It will be in the surface looking for air. But we are talking about diseases today and what is actually killing the fish. Here I just listed up some kind of parasite, viruses, fungi, and bacteria that can affect the different species. What we need to know is what is actually killing a fish. If you got a high mortality, what is it? Is it environment? Is it an infectious disease? And to know this, it's extremely important to do a correct sampling. And a correct sampling means that you need to check the fish dying with the disease. So, for instance, a dead fish have already started decomposing. So the sampling you're doing might be of more opportunistic bacteria or environmental bacteria just living in the environment. And it doesn't tell you any more than the fish is dead. So what you want to do is collect from a moribund fish that shows sign of disease, but is still alive, so the decomposition hasn't started yet. What you do with this fish, you take samples, or you get the veterinarian to take samples, and you send it to a diagnostic lab, or you do it at the site, whatever is possible and convenient for you. This is still probably an issue a lot of places. In Norway, we're lucky that we can get a response in like 24 hours. In Africa, it's usually takes a little bit longer time now, and that is a big issue if you want to treat the fish. But you still need to do that. So it's not, because then the next time something happens, you are prepared and you can act faster than the other time. So always, if you have high mortality, you should do a diagnostic, because the only way we can go forward is by finding out what actually is the big problem or the issue at your farm. So prevention is my favorite word. It's the thing that needs to be done to make this work. And biosecurity is probably a known word for everyone after COVID, but it's just as important with fish as it is with humans. And it's to some degree easier than for COVID, but some places a little bit more difficult as well. But the most important thing, you can control what enters your farm. Introducing new fish is always one major risk, and no matter where you are and through your farm, because you don't control the fish that you're in. So you can get a health certificate. You should get the health certificate before you introduce it, but you should always be wary before and after you have introduced new fish. The same thing with people. Diseases can spread through unwashed hands, boots, even with animals like rats and birds, and especially equipment. So you should try to have your own equipment at the farm at the same time, and not need to borrow from others. But if you're borrowing from others, even though if it has been cleaned and disinfected, you should do that when it arrives in your farm as well, because you can only validate your own work. So cleaning, disinfecting, and drying in the sun for equipment that manage that is always the best thing to do. Also within the farm, it's important to think biosecurity. If you're mixing groups, like if you have if you're moving from one tank to another tank and you're mixing groups, you can potentially spread the disease. So that is something you need to know. The same with people and equipment, especially equipment like a dip net should be per unit, because it's so much in contact with the fish that it's difficult to get completely cleaned all the time. And you definitely need to have really, really good protocols for cleaning, disinfection, using like chlorine or something like that for disinfection, and drying as much as possible. But it's not only biosecurity that needs to be done. Prevention and optimizing the fish is also very important. And that is making sure that the environment of the fish is as good as it can be. Monitoring oxygen levels, different water quality measurements, make sure that they are in range, make sure that there's not too much of fluctuation. Use optimal feed and a feeding strategy. Give the feed when it's needed, and don't starve the fish unnecessarily. Minimize stress and handling. Fish is made to be in the water. It's not made to handling like above water. So minimize handling as much as possible. That will diminish stress, and it will keep the fish from getting wounds or damages. The last thing is vaccination. I put in question mark on this one because it's a little bit difficult. The problem with vaccination is that you vaccinate against one certain disease. So you need to know what you have to vaccinate against. And it also needs time to work. It's not like a treatment where you just inject the fish with the vaccine and it works. It usually needs like 400, 500 day degrees, like with 20 degrees, that's 2 weeks before it actually works. So prevention and biosecurity will be a much better way of doing things than vaccination in most cases. The one cases where I see that it might be necessary is in lake farming, because you can't really control that much of the water that passes through your cage. So in these cases, you can vaccinate the fish on land, let the vaccine work, and then put it into the lake, and it will be protected. But it's a costly and time-consuming process, so you really need it to be prepared for it and actually need it before you do this. The last thing is treatment. For like parasites, it's easier to treat with methylene blue, formalin, or salt. But for the bacterial infections, antibiotics is the one thing that actually work. Is it the ultimate solution? No, it's not. It will work against many bacteria. It will not work against viral diseases or parasites or fungi for that matter. And there is unfortunately resistant bacteria. So it is not a miracle cure.
You have to.
And luckily, you can use it for certain bacteria, but it needs to be used correctly. And that is because if you don't use it correctly, you can the spread of anti-resistant bacteria can occur. So if you're using antibiotics, know the bacteria you're treating against, use the right antibiotics, mix it correctly in the feed. Antibiotics in water hasn't given that good results. And make sure that you do the right administration time. Usually 8 to 12 days. Do not reduce it. And if it doesn't work in that time, it's not going to work at all. So you need to do a new diagnostic. Yeah. So that was really quick about a lot of different topics. I hope there was something new, something that made you start thinking. And there's definitely a lot more available on blueplantacademy.com/samakipoa. And it's free, and you find a lot of information, not just in health, on tilapia and African catfish there. So please register and start learning.
Thank you so much, Niels, for that elaborate presentation on fish diseases. Is there anyone who has any questions for Niels? Niels, I was wondering, so when I realize my fish is sick, how do I still get them? Because I know if there's a cow is sick in a large herd, you put them aside on a quarantine or something, right? So what are some of the ways that you can accommodate the fish while they're undergoing treatment?
It was a little bit bad line there, but you're wondering how you can treat a fish or
I was
separate it.
wondering what can you do to accommodate the fish as they are undergoing any form of treatment when you realize they have a disease? Because, you know, for a herd in a cow situation, a herd, you have to put them aside, right?
Yeah.
You quarantine them. Or when COVID happened, people had to stay in the house. So I was just wondering, how does that dynamic work in the aquatic systems?
You got the disease in the water, so you have to assume that every fish in that tank or in that pond have the disease. So you can't just take out just 1 or 2 fish because they seem a little bit off. So you definitely need to just quarantine the entire unit. And in that time, it is stay away, basically. Do not interact that fish with the rest of the farm. If there is really high mortality and antibiotics is not suitable, or if you know that it's not parasitic, it might actually be best to just remember that since there's always a little bit water left, you definitely need to clean the unit or dry it completely before you put new fish in there, because there will be diseases. A lot of the chances there will be diseases still in the water. So the water contain the bacteria or the parasites, or they're a lot better than air do. So the cleaning and disinfecting and drying is something that you really need to get into your head, that needs to be done all the time. Even if the production cycle is good, you definitely need to do that.
Understood. Thank you so much for that. I can't see any other question in the chat. I know we have a general Q&A session at the end. So I think once people accumulate their questions, we're able to answer all of them. Thank you so much for that presentation, Niels. That was great. We can go to the next speaker, and we have Tanya, who will be speaking about water pollution and feed management. Tanya has experience in ornamental caviar, tilapia, and catfish farming business. She joined Scrating in 2017. And her first time in Kenya was in 2014 on a project called Jumbo Fish. So she's going to take us through water pollution and feed management. And yeah, we'll have a Q&A session thereafter if anyone has any question. Welcome, Tanya.
Thank you very much, Lydia. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, indeed. So today I'm going to give a very brief introduction into feed management and water pollution. This is going to be the tip of the iceberg, because there's a lot of information, of course, on feed management. But yeah, if you have questions, then leave me a message in the chat, and let's go. So I've created a little bit of a wheel of topics that I'll briefly introduce today. So starting with the nutritional fit. Next slide. Yeah. So when in Scrating, we start to create a diet for a species, we look at first of all, the digestional tract, or let's say the natural diet of that species and how it normally digests these nutrients that it consumes. And we then distinguish 3 groups. So we have the carnivorous fish, we have the herbivorous fish, and we have omnivorous fish. And you can clearly see, if you look at the digestive tract, that there is a very clear difference between the 3. And that is the basics when we start formulating diets. So what you can see is that carnivorous fish in general have a very short digestive tract. And specifically for trout and salmonids in general, you see they have these pyloric ceca, these little finger-like structures that help with digestion, excrete enzymes. Then if we look at tilapia, which is predominantly a herbivorous fish, we see a very long digestive tract. And that simply is to make it easier for this fish to digest plant materials, because plant cell walls in plant materials are typically very hard to digest. So the digestive tract of tilapia is adjusted to that. Then if we move to African catfish, which is more of an omnivorous fish, then we actually see that they also have a quite short digestive tract, but are able to digest actually to an extent plant raw materials. So, like I said, first of all, we look at what does the natural diet look like. Then, of course, we look at what are their optimal protein, fat, vitamin, mineral requirements. We do a lot of research into these specific species to find out for each specific one, what do the requirements look like, so that we can formulate a diet exactly according to their needs. And then, of course, we also distinguish different life stages. And in Scratching, we work with what we call a life cycle approach. And that means that we, for instance, in this example of tilapia at the bottom of the slide, you have the broodstock phase, you have the starter and nursery phase, and then we have the grow out phase. And those three phases have different needs naturally. And then, of course, in addition to that, we also look at how easy it is for specific species to digest specific raw materials. So this is an example of the protein requirement according to fish size. And what you can see in this graph, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but basically for pretty much any fish species and any animal, you could say in general, is that the protein requirement is always highest at the beginning of life. So in the hatchery phase, we have to feed diets with a higher protein content if we compare it to the grower phase. So on the right side, you can see this is an example for a catfish. Then you see that in the hatchery phase, so the top circle, you see that fish need a high protein requirement, and that in the nursery and grower phase, you slowly or gradually see the protein requirement go down. And in addition to that, you often see that the carbohydrates levels in the diet actually go up. So that shows why it's important to not just feed one diet, and to feed a diet specifically produced for the species that you are farming. Moving on then to production technology, because that has a very big effect on feed performance and fish performance as well. So when we talk about fish feed, we distinguish two different types of fish feed generally. We have extruded pellets, and we have, or extrusion, and we have a process called pelleting. And nowadays, actually, the most common type of feed that we feed to fish are extruded products. Now, what we do in extrusion, and on the picture on the right, you actually see this is what an extruder looks like. What we do in the extrusion process is we basically cook the raw materials. So we heat the meal mix, so the mix of raw materials, to a certain temperature where we start to cook mostly the plant raw materials and start to break down the cell walls. And you can compare this directly to how we also cook our vegetables, because otherwise it would be very difficult for us to digest the potatoes and the vegetables that we're consuming. So we're doing the exact same thing with fish feed, is we extrude the raw materials and we extrude the pellets. Now, the production technology has thus a very big impact on the physical properties of the diet, and in addition to that, also on the hardness of a pellet. And with actually the extrusion process, we have a lot of control over how we produce a pellet, of course, the size, but also the hardness, the dust formation. So there's a lot that we can control in the extrusion process, more so than in a pelleting process. Moving on then to physical properties. So if we look at a feed, of course, the first thing that we're going to see is the feed size, the feed color. And what we always want when we produce fish feeds is that we create and we provide diets with a uniform pellet size. And a uniform pellet size has a very beneficial and direct effect on the uniformity of the fish batch that's being produced. And that is because we then provide each individual fish with the same amount of nutrients. If there would be a lot of variation, and some fish would get very small pellets and have thus a low level of nutrient intake compared to some fish that receive pellets double the size, if they're even able to consume that, you would very easily start to see that the sizes in a batch start to deviate. Now, in addition to that, we, with the production process, are also able to determine whether we want a sinking, a slow sinking, or a floating pellet. And this is something that we can take care of in the extrusion process. However, in the pelleting process, it's always a sinking diet. So there's limitations with pelleting, and that's why we prefer the extrusion process, together, of course, with the other aspects of the higher digestibility and so on. But with adjusting the diet to the behavior of the fish and also to the production system, we can optimize growth. Because if, for instance, we have pond farming, then you prefer to have a floating diet because it makes it much easier to see how the fish are actually feeding, and it's much easier to also check up on your fish and to see if anything is off. So it's easy to monitor when you're using the correct type of feed for your production unit. Now, extruded pellets also have a higher water stability. And what we mean with that is when we cook the raw materials, the starches in the diet actually start to gelatinize. And what they do is they sort of glue together the raw materials, and that makes for a very water-stable pellet that doesn't leach as easily. And nutrient leaching is basically when the pellet is in the water, it eventually starts to, of course, it starts to fill with water and starts to break apart. But with extruded pellets, good quality extruded pellets, you limit the nutrient leaching and thus have a lower impact on water quality. So if we look at diets, of course, the first thing, what I already mentioned, we see is pellet size. Is it a uniform diet? Is there a lot of dust in the bag? Then, of course, we can factor in if we want it to be a floating diet or a sinking diet, how water stable it is. We can add in specific micro-ingredients to help with or help avoid molding. But something important that we also frequently get questions on is coloring. And people often want to know if the color of a diet is a good indicator for the quality of a diet. And in short, the answer is no, because the color of a diet is determined by the color of the raw materials that go into the diet. And in Scratching, we work with a concept of, we call it opsiline, and that is basically where we have raw material flexibility. So the digestible protein level, for instance, will always be the same, but we can play with raw materials. And with that, we can make sure that we keep offering a diet that is price-wise still affordable for farmers. And also, if there is fluctuation in availability of raw materials, we are able to maneuver around that. And here I have a couple of examples. So for instance, you see sunflower seeds, that if there's a decent inclusion of sunflower seeds, the pellets will be much darker in color. Fish meal has more of a brownish color, so a diet high in fish meal, you'll see that back. And at the top, you see very clearly this is algae that we can put into the diet, giving a very distinct green color to a diet. So then something very important is then feed level. So as soon as we have the pellet ready and you have chosen the correct diet for your fish, then it's very important that you start feeding it the right way. So what is important to understand when it comes to feed level is that there is something such as a maintenance part of the feeding, and there is growth that is a result of feeding. And we have exactly the same in humans and in other animals. We need the maintenance ration just to stay alive, to be able to breathe, to have our heart pumping blood around, for our hair and nails to grow. So the maintenance aspect is always going to be there. Everything on top of that can be used for growth until a certain satiation point. And that is where the fish are fulfilled, where there is maximum growth possible. But on top of that level, fish will no longer consume feed or are able even to grow beyond that point. So what causes then a high FCR? I have a couple of examples here based on catfish with a very doable FCR below 1, but for the sake of the calculation, I kept an FCR of 1 as the best possible option in this case. So the gray line on the right side, or the gray line, shows the feed. And then part of that feed is used for maintenance in blue, and then everything on top of that is used for growth. So what happens if we start to underfeed, which is something we often see, is that you limit the amount of feed that goes into the unit, but you still have your maintenance portion that's always going to go to maintenance, and that just leaves you with less nutrients available for growth. So you're limiting growth, but the fish will still use the same amount for maintenance. Then, of course, clearly, when you overfeed, then the extra feed that fish are physically not able to take up is going to go to waste because it's simply not consumed and it will start to deteriorate in your production unit. Next slide. So how to determine the correct feed level then? And Niels also already touched on it. It's very important for farmers to know what healthy fish behavior is. And the moment to observe fish best is during feeding, because that's when fish come up to the surface. And especially African catfish, you don't see them all that much during the day when you're not feeding. But the moment of feeding is the perfect moment to check up on your fish. So observing feeding behavior, seeing if they respond well, see if anything is off. So that is the moment really to check up on your fish. And of course, by observing your feeding behavior, you are able to visually see, are they still feeding? Am I to a point where they are fulfilled and they're not eating anymore? So it's a good, by good feeding behavior and good observing of feeding behavior, you avoid underfeeding and of course also overfeeding, because you simply stop when you see that the fish show less of an interest. And what is important there is that you do meal feeding multiple times per day, especially in the grow out unit, in the hatchery and in the nursery. You will have even more frequent feedings during the day, but in grow out, we say anywhere from 2 to 4 times per day is quite standard, and allow for sufficient feeding time. And I have here 10, 20 minutes. Less experienced farmers may even need to take a little bit more time. And why we have sort of a time frame is because what you always see in the beginning when you start feeding is you have these very aggressive individuals that will start to feed first. And as soon as they are satiated, that's actually when the more shy fish will have a chance to feed as well. So allowing for enough time to feed will really benefit the growth in your production units. In addition to that, it's very important to train the people that are feeding the fish. So if it's not just you or the owner of the farm, it's very important that you train the people that are doing the feeding for you or with you to know what the signs are of satiated fish, also of off behavior if something is wrong. So it's important that people understand what they want to achieve with the feeding. Then what is also really important is to set a target for the daily feed amount, and that can really help in determining if something is off. So based on the biomass that's present in your unit, And based on a feeding table that a fish feed supplier can provide, you can calculate how much feed more or less your feed are requiring on that day. So that will also be an added moment to check if something is really off. If all of a sudden they want to eat only 20% of their recommended or calculated daily ration, something is off. So growth tables, FCR tables, these are all either from your feed supplier or from your own experience based on historical records on your farm. But all of that helps in knowing and having control over the feed management in your farm. Then it's really important to understand the connection between the feed level and water quality, because we're bringing a lot of nutrients in a unit. So for fish to eat in an optimal way, water quality parameters need to allow for that. And here in the table, you can see the various optimal water quality parameters or optimal ranges for a couple of different fish species. And what we see is that in low temperatures, for instance, there is a very big impact on feed intake. And the reason for that is fish are cold-blooded animals and they need water, warmth from the water to be able to have the bodily processes going. So for a fish to be able to digest, it needs a water temperature that allows actually for that process to take place. And in addition to that, also oxygen levels. So digestion, but also swimming around, being active in general requires oxygen. So if not sufficient levels of oxygen are available in the pond, you will see a reduction in feed intake. In addition to that, high ammonia levels also directly affect feed intake because it's an immediate stressor for fish, and stressed fish will show a reduced feed intake. So when we feed the unit, it's important to understand also the time that is needed for fish to digest feed, because that will determine the peak in ammonia levels. So what you see in the image is we put feed in a production unit, then we always have a small portion of uneaten feed. Even with the best feed management, it can happen that a couple of pellets are uneaten and will sink to the bottom, start to dissolve or deteriorate. Then, of course, as tilapia are a bit of munchers, so they eat a pellet, spit it out, eat it again. So there is always a bit of nutrient leaching going on when tilapia show this kind of behavior. So there is, first of all, nutrients coming directly from the feed that affect the production unit directly at the moment of feeding. And then we have, of course, as soon as fish have ingested the pellets, then they start to digest, and that creates the digestion of mainly protein, creates ammonia. And ammonia is excreted mainly through the gills in fish and a little bit via, or excretion through the kidneys via urine. So what that means is that after feeding, you of course have your immediate peak but not necessarily that big of a peak, but definitely nutrients entering the water. And then after, and then you can see it at the top, so tilapia have a digestion time of 7 to 8 hours, but African catfish have a much faster digestion. So that is when you can expect that ammonia actively starts to enter the water column. And it's important, of course, that through the nitrogen cycle, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but that eventually is broken down to nitrite, nitrate, and then removed from the water, either by uptake through plants or by water renewal. Then the last link I want to make is between how feed management has a very direct impact on the sustainability of a fish farm or production unit. So feed management and feeding a high quality diet for your farm species, I would say, is number one, because you're feeding a correct diet that leads to optimal growth and a reduced production time. So you're making optimal use of the options that you have available. Now, a diet specifically formulated for your species leads to a high efficiency when it comes to digesting those raw materials. And that means by having a very efficient digestion, you limit the amount of waste production and you actually maximize the amount of uptake of nutrients in your fish. Then a limited amount of waste production leads to fewer or lesser ammonia peaks in your production unit. That leads to more constant and optimal water quality, and that then in turn, you need to renew the water less. You see a better fish health in general, so less mortalities and thus a higher profitability. Then reduced ammonia levels and fluctuations also lead to a higher feed intake, which then in turn helps with a reduced FCR and of course a faster growth. So overall, I would like to end with that the most efficient and least environmentally environmentally impacting way of producing fish is by good feed management, by having good feed management in place and starting with a diet that's formulated for your specific species. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanya, for that great presentation about feed management and water pollution. Of course, we need to know how to feed our fish, so which affects the water quality eventually. So if anyone has a question, please put them in the chat. Scrating is a partner of this Best Fish Farmer competition through Tunga. They are giving us 300,000 worth of fish feed for the best fish farmers. That equals to around 2,000 kilograms that will be distributed among the best winning fish farmers. So make sure you sign up for the competition. I'm sure my colleagues have put in the link on the chat. Any questions from anyone? Okay, I think we have another question answer session at the end. So as people think about it, we'll call you back, Tanya, and you'll be able to answer them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have seen some few participants who are joining from wherever they are, have their videos on. I really appreciate you joining us on a Friday afternoon. That's a really big deal. I can see you, William Ojuang, you're taking some photos. Just know that our slides will be shared with you together with these recordings. Fred Omolo, karibu sana. Thank you. Karen Achando, thank you for joining us from wherever you are. As I mentioned in the beginning, feel free to let us know who you are and where you're coming from. Freddy Kayuki says he has several questions. Please ask all of them. We are happy to answer you. We are happy. We have a really large team who are willing to help and give you clarity. So we can go to the next speakers. I say speakers because it's not just one. This is the Gishanda team where we have Mati and Eileen. Gishanda Fish Farm is our partner in Rwanda, and they'll be speaking about fish farming impact on sustainable community development. We thought that having a fish farm representation would be great for you to see things practically around this topic. So we are happy to have Mati and Eileen, who are experienced RAS managers in Rwanda, and they work at Gishanda Fish Farm. They are a stellar team, and they are living testimony that a fish farm can generate income for the owners and improve the livelihood of our whole community. So without further ado, I just want to welcome the Gishanda team, Mati and Eileen. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Lydia. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear. Welcome.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for introducing us. Like you said, we are a Gishanda team who work at Gishanda Fish Farm, which is working underneath Akagera Management Company that is located 10 kilometers from Akagera National Park. Gishanda Fish Farm was launched in 2022 with the vision to delivering accessible protein at an affordable community to the community, and an affordable price to the community. Also, it was built to develop the value chain in the region and deliver deliver quality fingerings to the community around the farm, into the region, and lake restocking. So we have been presented a lot of many farming aspects, like we saw feeding, fish diseases, but also we may wonder, what does the community around the farm benefit from that establishment of the farm? That's what we are going to talk about. So the Gishanda was established with a lot of vision, like we said in the above, and those are the ones that we are going to start introducing to you. The first benefit that the community benefits from the fish farm is education or capacity building. A fish farm plays the important role in equipping the community with the skills and knowledge of how they can run their own fish farms. They can do that in terms of trainings, workshops, and internships. So through those trainings and internships, the farmers gain the knowledge and skills in various aspects of fish farming, like fish health management, feeding management, water quality management, and harvesting protocols. Through those trainings, they now know how they can run their own farms and increase their production. At Gishanda Fish Farm, we have a training facility where we encourage members of the community, the cooperatives, or individual farmers to come and learn how they can gain all the knowledge and skills to run their own farms. So we have conducted 3 free catfish trainings to the cooperative members into the community, and they also gained the technical support from the Gishanda team, through which they go on and then apply those knowledge and skills acquired from Gishanda Fish Farm into their pond farming or cage farming, which helps them to level up their production. Next slide, please.
When a fish farm is going to be built in the region, the first thing that comes to your mind is the employment. A fish farming is one of the business that can create a job opportunity to the surrounding community. From the construction to working in fish hub, from the maintenance and the security or the cleaning, all those activities are done by the community. So the community are gaining the employment opportunity coming from the fish farm that is built in the region. And this is going to be elevating the living standard through those opportunities they are gaining.
A fish farm also delivers an accessible source of protein to the community. If a fish farm is built in the region, the first people to benefit from that fish farm are the people around that farm, in a way that they have to gain enough protein from the nearby place, because if it's far away, then they have to pay extra costs of transport, which also increases the money to pay for the fish. So if the farm is nearby, now the person near the farm knows that I have to walk like very few minutes to get to the farm and buy fish, which we all know that it delivers a lot of protein in the nutritional value. So it helps the people around the community to increase their nutrition and fight against malnutrition. At Gishanda, 10% of the total production is sold to the community at an affordable price, 50% of the beef meat that is on the market. So these special prices, it makes them easier and accessible to the community for every member of the community to afford that price. Now they can be able to buy the fish and feed their children, especially for the young children and the pregnant mothers. So now they are able to boost their nutritional value.
Next slide, please. And also, when the fish farm is installed, as we told you in our introduction, we told you that the main purpose while we were installing the fish farm, it was to provide quality fingerlings to the community and to the whole region. So quality fingerlings, together with a good management, strongly leads to a good production. A fish farm acts as a source of fingerlings and education to catalyze a fish farming in the region, so that the community will be having a sustainable production as they lake are destocked. So far in 2023, Gishanda Fish Farm has destocked the lakes around the park and the dams with 248,000 fingerlings. So the surrounding farmers will be having enough production sustainably in a continuous way that will be helping them to improve their livelihood.
Next slide. A fish farm is also one of the business that must help into agricultural integration. Systems like RAS, they help for the community to integrate agriculture into various aspects. So they have to compare different agricultural systems so that they can have the diversification of farming systems. RAS, as one of the fish farming systems, it utilizes liquid effluent from fish waste, which acts as fertilizers rich in nutrients, and the farmers can use them into both ways, either irrigation and fertilization, which we call a term we call fertigation. So in one way, they are fertilizing their farm, their crops, but also irrigating their crops. So the liquid effluent is very important into the farm. First, it helps you not to spend extra money to buy fertilizers from industries, and also you have your fertilizers nearby the farm. It also promotes sustainable and organic agricultural practices to minimize the damage to ecosystem. So if you have that effluent, you're not throwing it into the environment, but you're collecting it and again make use of it into your farm. So you're benefiting from the farm, but also benefiting from the effluent waste from your fish. So at Gishanda Fish Farm, the way the community benefits is that liquid effluent, they come to the farm and they collect it for free. They take it and use it into their vegetable gardens for free. Other farmers far away from the farm, they come and buy. They have some prices for the effluent, but the community around, they buy the effluent they get the effluent for free. So in that way, the community are benefiting both by buying the fish at a cheap price, but also getting the effluent to use into their vegetable garden, which also increases the production of their vegetable gardens. They get what to eat and also what to sell to the market.
Next slide, please.
Next. Sorry, we had an issue with the internet.
With the internet.
Are you back?
Yes, we are back.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Another benefit for the community when a fish farm is installed, it plays a significant role in economic development and poverty reduction, not only for the community around, but for the whole country. With the establishment of a fish farm, fish markets and fish shops are built with the purpose to increase the household income as the fish are sold. Job creation for fishers. Also, the dealer in the fish farm comes and gains some money from their business.
Hi, can you hear us?
Sorry? Access. Can I have
Mati?
Yes.
Oh, we can see, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So another thing is the access to infrastructure. When a fish farm is installed, you have access to other infrastructure. As the Gishanda fish farm were installed, there were no electricity in the region. Now the people around the farm can have electricity, and the school around the farm get the electricity and clean water for the children to use in the kitchen or other cleaning activities. And also, there are no roads. Sometimes when you talk about fish farm, you hear about the rural area, you hear about so far it's near the water bodies. So access to that area is not possible or is not so easy. So when you install a fish farm, the first thing you do is to have a road to there. And that road is going to benefit to the community around the farm. Now at Gishanda, 2 villages have been connected by a road and a bridge. Now the accessibility of markets, accessibility to the other activities is easier at Gishanda Fish Farm. It's the same to the other farming system you can install. As you have a road to access your farm, other community will be benefiting to that. Thank you.
We also have environmental conservation. As we said, there are different farming systems. We have different farming systems. Those systems are such as RAS, we have cage farming, we have pond farming, and all those farming systems, they are supposed to manage the environmental conservation by preventing pollution into the environment. So well-managed fish farms, they can help minimize the environmental impact. So systems like RAS, which is the recirculating aquaculture system, they are responsible for waste management. Like they have a way of collecting the effluent or the waste from the fish, and later on they have the other managed ways of using it, like using them into the vegetable garden. So in that way of collecting the effluent or waste from the fish, they are managing, they are not polluting the environment. If you just leave the effluent into the environment, first of all, you're deteriorating the water that the community can use. And also you're putting the waste where they're not supposed to be, which also deteriorates the environment. Also, systems like RAS, they minimize water usage. So in minimizing water usage, you're also not using a lot of water. Like if you're using the borehole water, you're not using a lot of electricity to use for the pump to pump the water into your systems. So minimizing the water, you're also minimizing the escape of the fish from the fish into the wild. But if you just keep on throwing away the fish into the environment, then you're deteriorating the natural environment by putting the fish into the wild. Also, the use of solar technology as the main source of energy used at Gishanda, it also helps to maintain the source of, it also helps in reducing the use of renewable energy, hence minimizing the atmospheric pollution. So we encourage people to put more effort into using the solar system more than they use the renewable energy. So as they will reduce the atmospheric pollution. Providing also fingerlings to the community to restock the regional water bodies reduces the demand from protected areas. So if the community, they have a source of fingerlings, they know that if I need fingerlings, I will go to this nearby farm and buy my fingerlings. It will reduce the tendency of the people to go into the lakes to collect those small fries to put into their systems. But they know that I have a farm where to go and buy the fingerlings instead of going to collect them into the protected areas. Next slide.
Yep. Now, by having a fish farm, you are significantly playing a role in development and poverty reduction in the country. As you are giving a job to the community, not only the community will be gaining, also the people or the student, the graduate that has a knowledge in aquaculture will be getting jobs. So it doesn't just directly go to the surrounding community, but for the whole country or internationally. So having a fish farm will play a significant role in the livelihood of the whole country. As you are giving the fingerlings, as you are building a fish farm, as you have a road to access your fish farm, the market will be built along the farm. Now, there are businesses that are going to be born because of this fish farm, like the ladies along will start to in selling the fish. You would need transport, so the transport will be gaining in doing transportation. Many other activities, many other business will be born because of that fish farm around you. Maybe we are talking about giving for free, giving community, giving, and you are asking yourself, what am I gaining by installing a fish farm? It's not only the community who is gaining, you also are gaining, and you are gaining an income. Like by having a fish farm, you need to have a client that will come to buy your fingerlings. And the fingerlings need to be of best quality. Then who will tell the people that your fingerlings are of the best quality? It starts from those people who are around there, where you give the free fingerlings. They were telling the people that they got free fingerlings, but quality fingerlings from your farm. Then it will be like a testimony that will go around the country and also outside the country that you have a quality fingerlings. Now your business is gaining customers where you didn't spend the money in doing marketing. So they are doing marketing for yourself. Also, when they are coming to the lake that are restocked, they are gaining the fish or source of protein. Now they are not going to come to your farm to steal. Now it's like you have a security for free. So they will be the one to do the security to your farm. Thank you. Next slide.
So in conclusion, like we talked about all the benefits the community gains from a fish farm. And of course, you can't do a fish farm if you know that the people are not going to benefit from it. You gain income, but also the people around, they have to gain also some more opportunities from your farm. So the governments and private sectors, or maybe the investors, they should invest more in fish farming, as it plays crucial role not only into by giving you income, but also by providing to the community things like employment, education, and nutrition. Like we saw, also it contributes to the economic development of the country, agricultural diversification, and environmental conservation. So we all want to conserve our environment and also make our livelihoods better. We make our lives better. So like those are the governments and farm owners, but also the communities, the people around should follow the rules to protect the resources of the farm. So if they are gaining all those benefits from the farm, they should also be the one to secure the farm, make sure that the farm materials are secure, make sure the water bodies are protected. If they see that something is not going well into the farm, they have to communicate to the farm owners or farm managers so that we all work together to improve farming industry, not only in we promote farming industry in the whole world so that we all benefit from it. Thank you. That was the presentation from the Gishanda team.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Marty and Elaine, for that great presentation. I love the photos from some of our trainings through the Aquaculture Academy and in the other summer program. Thank you so much. So yes, I can see there's so many questions coming from Frederick, and I think we'll just go through one by one, and they're addressed to the different speakers. So let's dive into them. So the first question is on water quality. What is the best practice for a farmer, especially in a RAS system, where there's minimal outflow of water from the system? For example, a pump or aeration failure could spell doom to the whole stock. Marty and Elaine, maybe you could take up this question.
Yes. On water quality, what's the best practice for farmer, especially in a RAS system where there is minimal outflow of water from the system? Pump aeration failure could spell doom to the whole stock.
Is that true? Is there minimal outflow of water? Since it's recycling systems, right? Recirculating. So how do you go about, what are some of the best practices when you have in these systems?
So in recirculating aquaculture system, we do, like we said earlier, it saves the usage of water. You're not using a lot of water. So your water is recirculating. So the best way to control the system, so there is a way a system in RAS is built. You have the main tank for the fish, but you also have the sedimentation part where the weights are collected. So in a way, like to avoid parameters like ammonia, you have specific days to flush the sedimentation part. So if you don't flush the sediment where the waste of the fish are collected, also maybe uneaten feed are collected. So if you flush off that sedimentation part of the tank, then you refill the sedimentation with the clean water, and then your system can start working on. Also, you have the parameters. You have the parameters to measure your water quality, like temperature, oxygen, pH, nitrite, and ammonia. So you have to collect like at Gishanda, or maybe like that's how every fish farm should be doing it. We collect the water parameters twice a day. That is in the morning and in the evening. So like if you saw that the temperature is low in your system, you have to find a way to increase your temperature. You either have a warming system to warm your water to use into your system, or stop feeding until your temperature rises up again.
Thank you. Is there something about maintenance of the machines, the aeration pumps? Do you do that as well? Like, is that how often should one do the maintenance, or is
Maintaining the aeration when it failed?
the aeration pumps?
If the aeration pump is not working, the best way to do it is to either replace it or find the pieces that are missing into the pump and then put in new pieces to make your aeration pump work again. That's fine?
No, it isn't like that.
Okay, sorry. Thank you so much. We can go to the second question. Frederick, you'll let us know whether your questions are answered to satisfaction. You can just type in the chat. Question 2 is on fish diseases. I think this question will go to Niels. How do you counter outbreaks, and what are the possible causes of infections for a farmer to watch for to avoid losses? Also, what are some of the procedures can a farmer deploy in an emergency situation where he comes one morning and finds a whole pond has some infection, which he doesn't have time to do lab diagnosis?
Yeah.
Niels?
A lot of different questions. Firstly, the prevention and planning for what can go wrong and what you can do to limit the consequences. So there's a lot of different causes that a farm can watch for. The activity in the pond is the most important one, and the feeding, as Tanya said as well. If there's something wrong with the feeding, there's usually something wrong with the fish. So that's a very good indicator. To counter outbreaks, you should basically try to avoid the pathogens getting into your farm. So very restrictive on the people, the equipment, the fish that enters the farm. If you get a situation where you got an outbreak in your pond, the first thing I would do is definitely isolate that pond. Don't touch anything of the equipment being used there for any other ponds in your site. Try to find out if there's something that has affected the fish, like water quality. Do some water quality measurements. If you have the possibility, look for parasites. They can be seen, especially if you got a microscope. You can find a lot of the parasites by doing looking at the gills and the mucus layer. If it's nothing like that, it is antibiotics that's most likely to work. And if you got an experience that you got some issue with bacterial coming and going, it could be something that you could use, but otherwise it's very difficult to recommend doing that without the diagnosis. So, but if you got an infectious disease, there's very limited things that you can do when it's actually occurring, except for isolating the pond and starting anew. If it is more environmental related, you can reduce stress as much as possible. You can limit feeding for a short period of time to limit the activity level and see how it goes. But if it's an infectious disease, you basically have to start anew with that pond if antibiotics or parasitic treatment doesn't work. And then it's important with the cleaning, the disinfection, and the drying before you put new fish in. Otherwise, your new fish will get infected straight away. So not a happy situation.
It's not. It's such a crisis. And thank you so much for that. Those steps. We can go to the next question. It's about what is the general optimal feeding level to obtain an FCR of 1:1? How about 10% of the body weight of the stock? I'd say this question can go to Tanya.
Yeah, indeed. Also, a lot of questions into one.
Yeah.
When it comes to the FCR and the attainable FCR of catfish or tilapia, but I think you're referring to catfish here because of an FCR of 1. Genetics also play a very important role. So there are strains selected for optimal growth for a low FCR. Also, the production of a hybrid between African catfish and the vundu creates a catfish with an even lower FCR. So that is one. So what is the genetic potential of your fish? But in relation to that, considering that all the circumstances are optimal, you have good quality genetics, water quality is not a limiting factor, then what you can assume is that as of, let's say, the juvenile stage, which is, or finishing the juvenile stage, so when catfish are 20 to 25 grams, we recommend, or we see that the daily feed intake is roughly 5% of body weight. So that means if you have 1,000 kilograms of fish present in your unit and they weigh 25 grams each, then you feed roughly 5% of that 1,000 kilograms on a daily basis. So that can be your guide. And we have these feeding tables that will tell you exactly per size what the recommended ration is and what the daily percentage in feed intake as a percentage of body weight is for that fish size. So that can help a lot in also predicting how much you need to feed and how to get to an FCR of 1 or even below. So of course, a combination of genetics, high quality feed, and doing your calculations beforehand and knowing what to expect.
Thank you, Tanya. I see another question about feed management. Maybe we can answer it. Number 5 is how viable, recommendable are insect meals to farmers? Are the FCR superior to conventional feeds, that is fish meal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, insect meal is an excellent raw material to use in fish feeds, also because insects are part of the natural diet of a lot of fish, especially tilapia, but also catfish. They will eat insects when they fall on the water surface. So a great source of protein and also of fatty acids. Are the FCR superior? You cannot do a one-to-one comparison because we can never, or we will never feed a diet 100% consisting of one raw material. So it's always an inclusion rate. But the FCR of black soldier fly meal, which is the most used raw material when it comes to insect meals, is not superior to if we use fish meal, for instance. So no, that's not that there is a big difference. There is a difference, of course, on sustainability level, but also on price, because although insect meals are a very interesting newer raw material, it's also a lot more costly than some of the more common raw materials that we use in fish feed. So a great source of protein and also of fat, but also an expensive one.
Thank you, Tanya. There's still more questions, but I'll come back to you. I'll go back to Matty and Eileen about RAS system. So there's a question that says, which are some of the recommended supplements that can be added to a RAS aquaponics system to supplement plant nutrients from fish excrements to boost plant production to farmers? I'm not sure I understand this question. Which are some of the recommended supplements that can be added to a RAS aquaponics system to supplement plant nutrients from fish excrements to boost plant production to farmers? Okay, the waste that you collect from the RAS system, right? So how can you supplement them so that they can be used by the farmers? I guess that's the question. Yeah.
Yeah. For us, the effluent that we got from RAS are naturally rich in nutrients. So we use it naturally.
It's enough itself.
It's enough itself. We don't have
more nutrients.
This is tricky. Maybe our RAS has the effluent and we have a vegetable garden outside. When you have fish and vegetables, some nutrient can be healthy to vegetables, but can also be harmful to the fish. So you need to be careful. We stay natural. That's the good way to do it.
Thank you so much. So he asked if it's possible to get the slides from Tanya. You'll get all the slides plus the recording of this webinar. So don't you worry. After the webinar, you'll receive it. So there's a question from Frederick Obondo. Assume a farmer had stocked 2,000 fingerlings in his or her pond. What would be the expected amount of feed needed to grow the fish until maturity? Tanya, back to you.
Yeah, I think the most straightforward calculation is just to calculate how much biomass you're expecting to produce and multiply that by the expected FCR. So for instance, if you're going to grow your fish, let's say catfish, but I'll also do an example for tilapia. So let's say catfish with an FCR of 1, and you're expected to grow 2,000 kilograms, or you say 2,000 fingerlings. Of course, you will have some mortality, but let's say roughly 2,000 kilograms of fish is going to be produced. Then with an FCR of 1, you need 2,000 kilograms of good quality feed. Now, in the case of tilapia, let's say you grow your tilapia to 0.5 kilogram and you have 2,000 tilapia stocked. So that means that you're producing them 1,000 kilograms of tilapia, and you're doing that in a RAS system without any algae present. So there's only the produced feed or the extruded pellets that you're putting into the system. So with an FCR of, let's make it easy, 1.5, then you do 1,000 times 1.5, and you need 1,500 kilograms to grow that amount of fish. So multiplying the biomass by the expected FCR is an easy calculation to get a good idea of how much feed is needed.
Thank you, Tanya. Frederick, I hope your question is answered and it's satisfactory to you. Obed has asked, in fingerling production, how long the broodstock is considered old and needs to be replaced? Niels, would you answer this question?
Anya, isn't that more of your expertise?
You can answer it.
You can answer it.
Sure, Mati.
Yeah, in fingerling production, you can replace your female when it starts to reduce the production of eggs. Let's say 2 years, but in time when the female is starting to reduce the production, when the calf is going down, you need to replace it.
Okay. Thank you. There's a question from Elias. How can a farmer grow tilapia in ponds in order to get to 1 kilograms or more? There's so many things that can go into this. Maybe an aspect of Mati and Tanya as well, because I think this will be useful from both of your perspectives.
Yeah, I can maybe go first. So how to grow tilapia in a pond to 1 kilogram or more is what I see from this question. Well, indeed, of course, you first need to provide feed. And in a pond, there is usually some natural feed available in the form of algae. So that will provide a limited amount of nutrients for tilapia. But to be able to grow them to 1 kilogram, you need to supplement more feed. And what also comes into play when growing tilapia is whether you're farming a monosex community, because if you will have a mixed sex population, then a lot of effort of these fish and energy will go to reproduction. So this is a question that has many answers, but to grow them to 1 kilogram, you need good feed, you need decent water quality. I don't know, maybe Mati and Irene have something to add?
Yeah, what you are going to add is not far away from what you've said already. So generally, not only in the pond, but also in all farming systems, to grow a fish faster, first of all, you need quality feed. So quality feed is most usually expensive, but as it is expensive, it also makes your fish grow faster. So in the end, you find yourself have spent less amount of feed to expensive feed than the one who has spent a lot of money to cheap feed, but buys more and feeds a lot extended time. So if you are feeding quality feed and you're managing your water parameters, the temperature is good, oxygen, pH, all the water parameters are in range, then your fish are going to grow faster. 1 kg.
Another thing is to manage how you feed. Probably you can feed the fish and they are not taking the feed. You sit there and you say I feed, but the fish are not taking the full feed you put into the system. That's the other thing, good feed management. Also, you need to have a quality seed. What have you stocked? Do you have a quality fingerlings? The origin of the fingerlings you stocked is also important to grow a fish quickly.
Thank you so much. I love that the answer came from both of you. I needed that different perspectives that you have. So the next question is, how much organic manure applied in ponds per meter squared to tilapia and African catfish? Organic manure. Do you put organic manure in ponds for tilapia and catfish? Mati or Tanya?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe Mati and Aline, if you can speak from experience, if you do it in Gishanda fish farm, then maybe you can go first.
Because we use the RAS, we don't put manure in the RAS.
No, but maybe in one of the ponds outside. I don't know.
One of the ponds outside, we just use them the way they are. Like we said, we stay natural, so we don't use any extra supplements from anywhere else. But in other ponds, because some people also they use muddy ponds, like those people who use muddy ponds, they add some manure to fertilize their ponds. But in concrete ponds or dam liners, we don't use fertilizers. So as per how much we use to fertilize the ponds, we're not sure. Can't give the wrong numbers.
Yeah, I can add to that maybe that for those that don't know, so the reason that manure is added to the ponds is to create an algal bloom or to create algae in the ponds. And actually this is beneficial for tilapia, but not for African catfish. So there is, if you're farming African catfish only, there is no point in fertilizing the pond for algal growth. But for tilapia, there can definitely be a benefit. And the exact amount of manure that you need is difficult to determine beforehand. What people often do is just check the visibility and the presence of the algae in the pond. If that goes down, then you can apply or increase the amount of manure that you put in. But you need to be careful here because you're bringing waste into the pond. So this is something that needs to be done delicately, I would say. So I cannot put a number here.
Yeah, and also when you talk about manure, you need to know how long you need your fish to be grown. If they are feeding on algae, it's not the same if you are feeding the quality feed from the industry. So by putting manure, you need to have a clear plan on when you will need your fish to be grown.
Thank you very much. There's an additional question from Daniel. How much inorganic fertilizer should one add to ponds, maybe per week, in a tilapia pond? Again, Tanya, Mati?
Yeah, this is difficult to give an answer to because there's a lot of factors that go into this. The size of the pond, the size of the fish. So difficult to say. I can't answer this one. There's no standard, I think.
Mati and Eline, according to your experience, would you give a rough estimate?
Normally in Rwanda, they put 5 kilograms if they are going to fertilize a pond. But then they will consider how many kilos of feed they will be feeding. And they do that every 2 weeks.
Okay. I think you've answered all our questions. Maybe could anyone clap for our experts of the day? They've done such a good job in doing the presentations and answering our questions. Use your clap emoji. I know we can't do that loudly, but thank you so much, Tanya, Niels, Mati, and Eline. That was such a great session. Yes, and we have come to the end of our program. If you have any other question on your, please put them in the chat. Neil says there's a video on fertilization of pond that might help you plan it. Great. Thank you so much for sharing, Niels. Please go to that link so that you can find more information. Obed says that what weight is good to stock fish in cages from harper nets, and what is better stocking density? Mati and Eileen, what weight is good to stock fish in cages? Have you used harper nets?
Yes, the harper nets. When you're using harper nets, first of all, you need to consider the size of your fish and the size of the net you're going to use. Because if you use bigger mesh size nets, the fish are going to pass through. They go into the lakes or they go into the tank directly. So you first have to you can even stock them when they are like 1 gram into the cages or into the harper net. But you need to make sure that the size of the net is not bigger than the size of the fish you're putting in. Otherwise, if you put many, then they are going to escape. Small fish, they are going to escape. And what is better stocking density? So the better stocking density, it depends on the size of the harper net you're going to use.
And the aeration system in the cage.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so we come to the end of our session, and you can see Meshach has shared his email. We've received all your details once you registered, so we'll use those emails to send you the information, the recording, and the slides as well after this webinar, probably by next week. Yes, so on your screen, you can see the How to Do Aquaculture platform. Probably Cloudy, could you come in and give us a short, brief overview about this platform?
So everyone, thank you so much for all your questions. And in case your questions have not been answered or you're keen to learn more about any of the topics that have been discussed today, please go to howtodoaquaculture.com. That's the same link that Niels shared earlier on the Blue Planet/Tamaki-Poa. So please go there. There are different types of courses there, and that's also something that you will get a certificate afterwards. So also there was a question in the chat. You will not get a certificate from this webinar. However, you will get a certificate from each course that you will complete on howtodoaquaculture.com. So free to use and very much applicable for the African continent. So all the videos have been developed by Blue Planet together with Skretting, with Tanya as well, and with Lettuce Aqua, where Lydia is working for. So please join in and join us online.
Thank you very much, Claudia. So just a brief timeline about the Best Fish Farmer competition this year. We started in January, and its deadline is on the 29th of February, which is less than 2 weeks from now. And we did our first webinar in January where we did it was about sustainable fish farm management, and it was successful. We had so many questions, time was running out, and it went really well. And we're glad that we've had this second webinar about sustainable aqua health management, which we've had amazing speakers, and I love that you have the practical sense from the Gishanga Fish Farm. And our experts from Tunga, from Skretting, from Blue Planet Academy. Thank you so much, Niels and Tanya. And yes, the competition will be closing in less than 2 weeks on the 29th of February. Thereafter, there'll be a selection process according to our criteria of who we're going to have a selection process where we are going to choose a small number of people who will now go to the next stage where we're going to award them in the award ceremony on the 12th of April. So I just want to take a few minutes to ask who has registered for the competition. By raise of hands on the chat, can you tell us, have you registered for the competition? Are you a fish farmer? Are you an aspiring fish farmer? Are you a student? Are you a graduate? Tell us in the chat, have you signed up? And if you haven't, you can use the link that is on the chat and on your screen as well to register. Once you register, just say yes, registered. Registered. This is 2 minutes. Daniel said he's registered for the competition. He's a fish farmer. Awesome. Looking forward. In the audience as well, I think I saw one of the winners. Is she still here? I think she left. We had Sabrina in the room. So once you win as a student, you get to exciting opportunities, internship opportunities with various players, or rather people who have worked in the aquaculture value chain for a long time, which is great experience for you as you do your fisheries or aquaculture course. And plus, in addition, you can use the platform, the How to Do Aquaculture platform, to gain even more certifications. How cool is that? I'm still looking at the chat. Has anyone registered? If you've registered, just say I've registered on the chat. How many are registering? Just 2 more minutes, then we'll be done. Obed said he's Tanzanian, he's not qualified. Kindly share the link once more. Obed, you said you're Tanzanian. Oh, okay. But you feel free to go to the platform and apply, do those courses. You have more than 10, right? I think I saw a comment from Niels that said you have more than 10 certificates, which would be really great for you. Once we open the competition to around East Africa or Africa, you will definitely take part in it. All right. Without further ado, I just also would like to recognize the presence of Dr. Gladys Onyambu, who is the head of Department of Zoology in JKUAT University, where they teach fisheries and aquaculture studies. We'd like to thank you so much for extending the word to your students as well to attend this webinar. Thank you so much for working with us and partnering with us. We hope some of the students are going to win the competition. Please spread the word to your universities, spread the word to your fellow fish farmers or aspiring fish farmers. This is such a great platform. You'd attest to that. It's such a wealth of information that is good for you. Yes, so I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today for this webinar. It's been such a great session. Thank you so much for sparing your afternoon on a Friday. I think that's such a big deal, and it's such an honor to have you in the room. So thank you so much. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to the Lattice team. Thank you to the Aquaculture Academy. Thank you to the Dutch Embassy and Lariva International as well. We look forward to seeing you in the next one. We look forward to seeing you in the award ceremony coming 12th April. Yeah, so bye. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Lydia, for hosting it.
See you.
In May.